We got Monsanto teaming up with Bayer. All right, now, how ugly can that possibly get? You got the two companies on the globe that are probably in the top 5 companies sued more than any company on the globe. Now, they're coming together to start BASF, because the truth is the rap on these companies is so bad, they have to hide behind a new name.
Well, yeah, Bayer, immediately, I think it was like 2 days after the DOJ here approved the merger. It still has a little bit more to go through. But Bayer immediately came out and said, okay, great, we're going to drop the Monsanto name. We're not going to use Monsanto, as if that's somehow going to exempt them from all of the liabilities that company has built up over the last few decades. It won't. They're still...
Well, that's what they do.
Right.
Matter of fact, I caught DuPont, as we've talked about before, poisoning the water up in the Ohio River Valley. What DuPont tried to do was create another company and say to that other company, you're responsible for all the liability, all the death, all the poisoning, all the problems that you've caused internationally. You're responsible for that now. And oh, by the way, you probably don't have enough money to pay for all of it, so declare bankruptcy and we'll tie the whole thing up in bankruptcy court. That's kind of what we see happening here. Monsanto knows the gig is up. They know people are dying from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, blood cancers, a whole host of physical problems. So that's their next move.
Well, it's a corporate shell game, really. DuPont's done it. We've seen companies here down in South Florida do it when they buy an area where the water was just contaminated because they bought the corporation. They'll spin off a shell company, say, okay, you own the liability on this water thing, but we're going to fund you, $100 million, but you're facing $2 billion in liability.
Yeah.
So and I guarantee you, we have not seen it yet, but Bayer is going to try to do the same thing with Monsanto and maybe create, Bayer-Mon Chemical.
Yeah.
And they've only got a budget of $1 million.
But it's simply to say, we know we've killed all you people out there.
Right.
We know we've made your children sick. We know we've destroyed your waterways, now your food, your wine, your beer. We've destroyed all that. And now we know we're going to be sued. So we're going to create a company over here, and they're the ones that are going to be responsible for the liability, and then we're going to declare bankruptcy for that company. Life goes on in corporate America. This is, by the way, another story. I don't know. Nestle has agreed, for the moment at least, to stop pulling water out of the San Bernardino National Forest as they try to sort out this new deal with the government. I'm not even sure what the new deal with the government is, because the government let these boneheads for years pump water out of an aquifer that is the most troubled aquifer in the United States. We got California. California's on fire, right? They don't have enough money to go around. They don't have enough water to go around, even though they've had one of their wettest winters. They still don't have enough water because these freaks, this Swiss company, has been drawing water out of the aquifer as deep as 450 feet. And so everybody's saying, well, we don't have any. Well, of course you don't, because you idiots didn't do your job. Regulators didn't do their job. And until these environmental folks came along and said, wait a second, they're stealing our water, not paying for it.
Yeah, 30 years ago, Nestle's permit in San Bernardino expired, 1988. So at that point, they should not have been able to take a single drop of water out. But instead, not only did they keep operating for those 30 years, they were taking tens of millions of gallons extra per year than what their other permit had even allowed. So
that permit wasn't even in place.
So they're breaking the law, operating without a permit. They're taking more than double what the permit would have even allowed had it been renewed. But they just said, you know what? We don't need to bother with renewing this. Nobody's paying attention, obviously. So let's just pump.
If you had a well in your home, okay, and your neighbor just says, well, I'm gonna use his water, okay? I'm gonna just pump his water out. That is theft. That really is a charge. You could be charged with theft. Here you've got Nestle, this Swiss company, doing business over the United States. There's been zero charges on this. There has been zero criminal charges on this taking place. They've been stealing for 30 years. And if you went back, if these regulators or maybe the Attorney General or maybe the Department of Justice would go back in the emails of Nestle, I promise you what they would find is they would find Nestle bragging about the fact that they have this cash cow in California. And yes, we know we're affecting the water aquifer. And yes, we know we're taking the money without paying the water without paying for it. But life goes on. Now they make, you'll hear people talk about fracking, and fracking is horrendous what it does to the water table. It just poisons the water table, and it makes it useless. Well, Nestle's here. This is the same thing as fracking, only they're stealing the water. They're stealing it from taxpayers. And the government says, okay.
Well, here's the thing, too. A couple years ago, you had the CEO of Nestle come out and try to say that water is not a basic human right. Even though human life cannot exist without water, it's not necessary because Nestle wants to go all around the globe and do what they're doing in San Bernardino, which they pretty much are doing it all around the globe, take as much water as possible, bottle it back up, and sell it back to these communities for an astronomical profit. And if they run out of water, okay, Nestle can move to the next place, but those people that live in those areas can't. They're stricken with drought, crop damage because all the water's
whole damn state's on fire. I mean,
so and that's what Nestle wants to do. And again, they only agreed to stop pumping water for 30 days while they work out their new agreement.
While they work out their new agreement. No discussion from anybody that, shouldn't we put these thugs in prison? Shouldn't somebody be arrested for this? Well, let me tell you, we got about a minute and a half. I want to tell you this other part of the story. You and I have covered this. First of all, the water in Nestle's bottled water is horrendous. What they're finding in this bottled water is they're finding plastic pieces, little chafed off pieces by the tens of thousands in bottled water. So that's the first hit. And it just so happens Nestle is like way high on the list as having the water that's most contaminated with these little plastic shards that they're microscopic. You can't even see them. But if you're drinking that water all day, it's staying with you. It becomes systemic at some point.
Well, and, first of all, there's no health studies on what these microplastics do to the human body. They know it's not good, but they haven't been around long enough for people to be able to study them. And two, as you pointed out, Nestle is worst of all. But three, and this is the worst part of the story, when they pump that water out of the ground, it doesn't have those plastics in it. So whatever Nestle does when they take it back to their bottling facility is what's adding that plastic. Whether it's intentional, I don't think that would be intentional.
It's just negligent. They don't care. They're going to save a little bit of money by not getting it out. So they save some money, and consumers, again, become the victims.